What are your hot buttons, and how do you react when someone pushes them? Well, we're going to identify some hot buttons now, including some of mine, and find out how to diffuse them. Joining me now, our relationship coach, Susan Campbell, along with two of her clients, Deborah Masters and Nicola Capella. Welcome to the show. Good to have you. Thank you. This is Susan, this is Deborah, this is Nicola. So, what are hot buttons, Susan, and what happens to us when they're pushed?
Hot buttons are those sensitive spots that we wear around our ego. And if somebody pushes one of our buttons, we feel like we've been punched in the gut, or we might feel some kind of knee-jerk automatic reaction.
And we can let those reactions take control of us sometimes.
And then you're not conscious. You're on automatic when you get your buttons pushed rather than operating from conscious choice.
Okay, let's get some real-life examples of what some hot buttons are that can set you off. I'll start with Deborah.
Well, one of mine is when I feel like someone does something that I'm not enough.
That you're not enough.
I feel like I'm not enough.
What do you mean by that?
Someone shows up late, they've forgotten about me, and I'm not important enough.
Right. You feel diminished in importance.
I feel diminished in
Gotcha.
some way.
All right. And Nicola, what about you?
Well, I had a situation the other day where I was reviewing a document for my ex-husband, something that we do for each other fairly regularly. And I noticed that as I was reading the document, I started to feel constricted in my body, and I had all these stories. I remember I was blaming him, saying, well, why couldn't he do this right? Now I have to clean up after him, and the font's wrong, and I noticed tension in my body building up. And once I realized that, that was my aha. Like there was something else going on here. Because it was an unrealistic reaction, I felt.
And so now what's happening for both of you inside when you get these feelings? Is that someone's pushed your button? Is that feeling taking over and keeping you from being able to function?
It does for me. What I tend to do is to pull back in and become separate from that person and create a barrier.
Yeah. Now see, one of my buttons is I can't stand it when people take things that I think are really insignificant, little things, and make a big dramatic deal over them, like, you know, mountains out of molehills. That just drives me nutso. What's wrong with me?
Well, first I ask you to think of a specific time, the way we can learn from our buttons, because really buttons are ways to learn about what's unfinished in your past, because you wouldn't have a reaction like this if you didn't have some old buried pain that was way back there. So if you will just stop and pause. So can you think of a specific situation where somebody took it wrong and overreacted to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can think of lots of specific situations. You know, if I offer a little bit of constructive criticism to someone who maybe has made a mistake, you know, and I always try to be polite when I do it, and the person just falls apart, like they've been personally attacked. I'm sorry that reaction's taking place, but it also frustrates me, like, don't you know I'm just trying to be helpful, you know?
There you go. So that feeling, don't you know I'm just trying to be helpful, if you just stay with that feeling a little longer, see if it reminds you of, like, a long time ago. I could, you know, like when people misunderstood your good intentions a long time ago. Can you go there?
Well, no, not specifically what you're talking about, but I guess this whole thing about getting upset when people make a big deal out of small things takes me back to my childhood, growing up poor and black in the Old South in the days of racial segregation, when I was facing what I considered serious, you know, indignities. And so when I see people making a big deal out of little stuff, I brush it off and like, how can you be upset about that? You know, wait till you've walked in my shoes.
I understand, and I'm imagining that you were trying to be sometimes helpful to your little brothers there. I don't mean your literal brothers, but your brothers, for your peers, just like you're talking about now. You tried to give constructive criticism to somebody and they took it wrong.
Right. Well,
so when that would happen, how would you feel when you were smaller?
Well, you know what? I would like to tell you, but what I'm afraid is that we'll ignore Nicola and Deborah.
Okay.
So can we get back to how you help them get out of there?
I'll
but
move over to that.
We'll talk later.
But what I'm imagining is just that feeling of being misunderstood is a button for you.
It is.
Okay?
It's a big button. Yeah. So now, how did you coach them out of it?
So let's see. Yours was when you feel like you're not enough, when somebody doesn't come through with something that they said they would do for you. You have a specific situation?
Yes,
don't you?
it happened just the other day. A significant person in my life, a male, was supposed to call me at 9:30 in the morning because we were going to go for a run. And we had set it up the night before, late in the evening, and at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 11, no phone call, no phone call. It didn't arrive until 1 o'clock.
Okay, so how did you feel? Just you need to remember how you felt then. This is the secret to healing these buttons, is to accept that you're feeling something. So do you remember that feeling, that not enough kind of feeling?
Yes, I felt very disappointed to begin with. I was anticipating the phone call, so there was the anticipation of the phone call.
Yeah.
And then when it didn't come, it was very disappointing for me. And I started to feel like that place that I talked about, like I'm not important. I'm not important enough for him to have remembered to call me.
And does this hark back to anything that happened when you were a small person? Because this is the important part.
Yes.
We wouldn't be taken out of the present moment and have our buttons pushed if we didn't have some unfinished business from the past. So what does that remind you of when you feel that ouch feeling?
The place that I go back to is when I was 6, my father left. He was institutionalized. And he came and kissed me on the cheek and said, "I'll be back." And he didn't come back.
Wow.
Not as my father. So the disappointment and the anticipation of waiting for someone to show up and do what they say they're going to do, and in a male, it's even that much more predominant.
So what I want you to do is comfort yourself when this happens. Just give yourself a little nurturance and let yourself know it's okay to feel disappointed. Because so often we just try to get on top of our buttons and act like we're in control, act like we're grown up.
I really hate to have to jump in now because this is really getting helpful. And now I'm not going to get back to Nicola again. But we have so many of these wonderful tips from Susan on how to deal with how you react to your hot buttons on our website. And this is a discussion we need to resume another time because it's too important to just dismiss right now. But we're out of time. Thank you so much.